Welcome to the tool review channel, and for today's video we are taking a look at the Marvel and the Fujiya cross-cut pliers, and I'm going to tell you which one I prefer to have over the other one. So to start off the video here, take a look at the Marvels. These are a fairly decent pair of diagonal cutters. Now, I believe the main market for these, other than Japan, is down in Australia. They are fairly common. I've seen a lot of guys, a lot of electricians down in Australia on the social media platforms. At least a majority of them have a pair of these, or they at least have a video on them. So that is the Marvels. They have, this hard plastic handle that's got a bunch of grip on the back. They feature the crimper as well. And these crosscut pliers act as, not only do they act as a pair of pliers, but they also act as a pair of cable cutters as well. And so instead of getting that pinch cut that you're going to get with the, like a standard pair of combination pliers, lineman pliers, or diagonal cutters where it kind of pinches the wire, these, the blades cross each other instead of meeting together. So you get a lot cleaner of a cut when you're cutting a conductor or you're cutting whatever you're wanting to cut with these. So that's the Marvel, and it blatantly says right on the front, do not cut steel with them, made in Japan. Both of these tools are made in Japan, and the backside's pretty much plain. And you can see we have a fairly decent sized cutting edge. Now, it's not the, the nicest cutting edge. I've been using this tool a lot. And on the nose of the plier, you can see you have a very aggressive cross hatching, which is nice when you're needing to twist some wires together. That'll really bite into those wires and allow you to get a little bit more leverage when you're twisting. So that's the Marvels. Now we'll take a look at the Fujiyas. Now the Fujiyas, unlike the Marvels, have a screw here and a screw here, but unfortunately, I'm not sure you can adjust the stiffness on these pliers. And I will say, when I first got these Marvels, they were a little loose, but after a few times using them, they broke free real quick. I've been using these for a little bit, and they aren't quite broke free yet. They will, they will pop open, but they're not 100% broke free. But you do have the brass screw on the front, and then you do have a fairly large cutting jaw right there, which is fairly sharp and fairly big as well. Now, unlike the Marvels, the Fujiyas do say they can cut through some harder wire, but you have to put them in that little tiny bit right there for them to cut through it. Otherwise, if you go through up here, you're going to damage the cutting edge. And unlike the Marvels, the Fujiyas have a very small head on them, and all the teeth are parallel to each other. They're not crosshatch, so that small head and those parallel teeth are going to make it extremely hard when you're trying to either pull off some insulation or you're trying to twist multiple conductors at a time. That small head's going to be a little bit tricky to do with. Now, the one positive note about the Fujiyas is they come in an 8-inch, and they also come in I believe it's a 7 or a 6-inch pair as well. So you got a 200 BG, and then you have a 175 BG. I'm not really sure what that is in millimeters off the top of my head, but you can get them in 2 different sizes. Now, both of these pliers, I've only been able to find them directly from Japan. I've bought them off eBay, both direct from Japan, and they both actually came fairly quick. Now, originally, I did buy these off of Amazon, and I obviously got them in 2 days. But I did recently pick up another pair of these because I just really like these so much. And I did buy them off. I had to buy them off of eBay, and they did come. They came in a week. They had expedited shipping. Both I believe they came from the same seller. Offered expedited shipping on everything. I'm sure with the shipping cost was built into the price of the tool, but it pretty much matched all the rest of the prices out there. And some people weren't offering expedited shipping, whereas this certain seller was offering expedited shipping. So I obviously picked up another pair of these because I like them so much. And then, that was the only option to order these, was expedited shipping for these. And these have that grip on them that kind of relates to the grip that's on the Knipex Cobras, where it's not that the dipped handle where it's can be super slippery at times. This is the dipped handle that has some texture to it. So if your hands are oily or greasy, you're going to be able to grip onto these a lot better. Whereas, the Marvels, it does have that nice, that cross hatching, that nice grip up there. But I'm sure if your hands are oily or greasy, these would, slip out. And then unlike the marbles, there is no crimper on here. There's nothing really below that. I can't really call it a rivet joint since it's two screws holding the tool together. Like I said, a little bit stiffer than the marbles. So now we'll back out here and we'll get to some testing here and go ahead and cut through some wire and see how well they both perform. So we're going to first start off with my favorite pair, the marbles. And we'll go ahead and cut through some, 18 gauge stranded wire, and it's able to cut through that without any issue. And I also find that I do like to use these crosscut pliers to strip wire as well. So we'll see how well I can strip wire with that. So just do it like that. And then I do like to use the jaws on the plier to pull off that insulation, and it did that without any issues. So that was with the marbles. So we'll go ahead and set those off to the side, and we'll bring in the Fujiyas. So go ahead and stick that wire in there, and as you can see, just like the marbles, it has no problem getting through that 18 gauge wire. So now I'm going to go ahead and try and strip this wire. Now I wouldn't typically do this with an 18 gauge wire, but for the video purpose I will. So I'll go ahead and see if I can't strip that wire, and I do find it a little bit harder to do. Sorry about knocking the camera there. To strip the wire, but I believe I have stripped it, and we'll see if I can pull off that insulation. And right there, I can pull off that insulation. I just find it a little bit trickier to do with the Fujiya, where compared to the marble, it's a lot easier. So we'll go ahead and set that 18 gauge wire off to the side, and we will bring in some 14 gauge solid wire right here, and we'll go ahead and see if we can cut through that without any issues. And if you saw the review on this, we're going to be able to cut through that without any issues. So that was with the Fujiyas. Now we're going to take the marbles right there. And there's just something about that sound when you cut through the wires with the marbles. I don't know what it is. I just really enjoy hearing that sound. But we'll go ahead and bring in some 14 gauge stranded wire now. And we'll go ahead and cut through that with the marbles as well. You're able to cut through it without any issue. And should be able to strip that wire without any issue as well. So that's super nice. So I'll put those down, and we'll bring in our Fujiyas right here. And as you can see, we are able to cut through that wire without any issue. And since them being a little stiff, it is a little awkward, I will say, to strip wire with these. And that's the one problem I do run into with these Fujiyas. With the marbles, I don't run into it where I end up, stripping the one side of it and either damaging the conductor or pretty much damaging the conductor and not getting the cleanest of strips. So that's with the Fujiyas on the 14 gauge stranded wire. We'll go ahead and put that off to the side. And we'll bring in some solid wire. Now I wouldn't typically use these to strip solid wire. I just would use it to cut through solid wire, and I don't work with a lot of solid wire anyways. But that was the marbles cutting through some 12 gauge solid wire. We'll go ahead and bring the Fujiyas in now. Not as loud of a cutting sound, but they both do, they're both able to get through that. And this is what I'm talking about when you get that nice cut, if we can get the camera to focus here on that wire. But you do get a little bit of a nice cut, and of course my camera won't focus, but you get a lot cleaner of a cut when you use cross cuts compared to a pair of, traditional laminate pliers or side cutters on the wire. So now if I can get this wire untangled here, we will bring in some 12 gauge stranded wire right here. And again, we'll go ahead and cut through that without any issues. And we'll go ahead and strip that guy as well. And you see it's super easy to pull off the insulation. I'm pretty sure I just did damage that conductor there. That was my fault. But I find it a lot easier to strip wire with the marbles compared to the Fujiyas. And we'll go ahead and cut through some wire. A little less quieter depending on where you put the wire in on the Fujiyas. But they pretty much operate the same with that. So now we'll bring in some 10 gauge solid wire right here. And we'll bring in the marbles, and it cuts through that 10 gauge solid wire without any issue. And we'll bring in the Fujiyas, and we're able to cut through that 10 gauge solid wire, like I said before, without any issue. So we'll go ahead and set that off to the side, and we'll bring in our 10 gauge stranded wire right here. We'll go ahead and chop through that guy without any issues. We'll go ahead and try and strip this wire as well, a little bit thicker of a gauge wire, and we are able to strip it without any issue there. Just when it comes down to the smaller gauge wire, I do find it a little bit challenging to strip with these now that I've been using them for a little bit longer. So that was with the Fujiyas. Now we'll bring in the marbles right here, and you see these guys just no problem whatsoever cutting through that wire. We'll go ahead and strip the wire right there, and I'm able to pull it off right there and able to cut that without any issue as well. So now both of these advertise that they can cut through multi-conductor wire. So we're talking Romex wire, on wires like that, whatever you use, whatever your country uses. Here in the States, we use a lot of Romex wire, or a lot of communication wire. So we're going to bring in some, well, we won't bring in our 12-2 quite yet. We'll bring in our 14-2 with ground. So we're cutting through 3 14-gauge wires. And we'll bring in the Fujiyas first, and they cut through it effortlessly. As you can see, you barely hear anything when you cut through them, and it's just a super, a super clean cut. And we'll bring in the hefty marbles right here, where pretty much every time you cut the wire, you get that nice snapping sound, and it does it fairly effortlessly as well. So we'll go ahead and set that off to the side, and we will bring in our 12-2 with ground. Going to be a little bit more challenging to do since you cut through 3 12-gauge wires, but the marbles can do that without any issue. So go ahead and set those down, and we'll bring in our Fujiyas right here, and we'll go ahead and cut through that. A little bit louder than the 14-gauge, but it's obviously a bigger gauge wire, so you're going to have that. So overall, when it comes down to it, I think I would rather have the marbles over the Fujiyas. Now, the Fujiyas, they are a nice pair of pliers, for sure. It is nice that they do come in 2 different sizes, but I personally would rather go with the marbles over the Fujiyas, because the marbles, to me, are almost like a pair of lineman pliers. They have that, that super aggressive cross-hatching on both, sides of the plier, which is nice. They have that nice cutting job, and they also feature the crimper. Now, with the crimper, when you're trying to crimp, 10 and 12 gauge wires on there, I do find the crimpers a little bit on the small side. It's mainly meant for like 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 gauge terminals, or if you guys use ferrules in your country or in wherever you're located, then that's kind of what I feel like that's mainly meant for. But it does a decent job crimping some wires. If you need it in a pinch, it is nice. But I honestly would prefer the Marvels. Now, it does kind of suck that you can't get these on Amazon anymore. I'm not sure what happened there. But when I originally made the video on them, you could buy them on Amazon. I'm not sure if it was the supply chain shortages or what it was, but they're no longer available on Amazon. So if you do want to pair them, maybe check out Amazon Japan. I believe they'll ship here to the States, or check out eBay for both. I know you can definitely find these on eBay. There's a bunch of sellers that have them listed. Same with the Marvels. There's a bunch of sellers that have them listed out there. Now, I do believe Marvel does rebrand these as well. So you're going to find, I'm pretty sure they make a pair for Engineer that have one of the screw extractors on them. And then there's another company out there that have a red handle on them as well. I'm not really sure on the name of that, but I believe Marvel is the one who makes them, and then just, they rebrand it and or retool it in the case of the ones for Engineer to have that screw extractor on there, but they pretty much look the same, and I'm almost positive they're going to function the same as well. But that's all I have for this video, so if any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to let them down in the comment section below. And always, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video to be uploaded.